So I bought myself an anvil. I've been really excited. I wanted an anvil. It's for a number of different reasons. It's for riveting, it's for a bit of blacksmithing, it's just to have a solid surface to be able to do my center punching on. And I picked up this amazing anvil from Reclaimed Railway on eBay. Cannot recommend their stuff enough. Customer service, absolutely fantastic. But I got my anvil, and when I first got it, it was just, I tried balancing it on my janky compost bin table, not solid enough to be able to hit with a hammer. I then decided to try putting it on the ground, and trying to sit on the ground and do any sort of blacksmithing doesn't work. So I decided I needed to build myself a table, because looking at work tables that you can buy, none of them are actually very solid, or if they are, they're very expensive. So I bought supplies and stocked up. I got 5 3-meter lengths of essentially 2x4, so it's 47mm by 97mm sawn treated timber, and initially cut lengths for legs, so I had to cut 8 lengths of 70 centimeters. I'd done some basic calculations, worked out what height I needed my anvil at, which I think is roughly speaking elbow height. I then took away the height of the anvil itself and then the height of the thickness of the tabletop, and yeah, ended up with 70 centimeters for the legs. So one thing you will notice in this build, there is an abundance of screws. I would suggest this is possibly a little over-engineered. I went through almost a full packet of screws in building this. So legs, obviously you want something that's going to be strong enough to be able to take the impact of hammer blows on it. So I doubled up the timber for the legs and did 4 doubled up legs at 70 centimeters using 70mm screws so that I could make sure got a good bite into the back side. Now, the thing that I like about this build is, although I am using a drill for doing pilot holes and then actually screwing in the screws, essentially this whole build you could easily do without any power tools at all. Having a powered screwdriver and a drill to drill pilot holes will make life easier, but actually if you pick the right screws, you shouldn't need to drill pilot holes necessarily, because this wood is good and thick. It's not going to split from having a few screws put into it. It just made life a little bit easier for me doing it this way. But you could do the whole thing screwing every screw in by hand quite happily. You can see my sawing. Yes, having a mitre saw might have been easier, but yeah, the whole thing can be done with hand tools. Once I got my legs sorted out, I then needed to start cutting the sides. So yeah, as I said, I decided to do all of this out of the same timber. I was thinking maybe get a slightly wider timber for the tabletop, but it was just easier to be able to do this and would have far less wastage. So decided to create 2 essentially H-frames. Are they H-frames or A-frames? For the ends of the table, and got everything squared up, got everything measured up. This would have been far, far easier to do had I had a proper work surface with square marks and all those sorts of things, but actually using a little set square, it worked pretty well, and essentially putting 1 screw in to be able to then make sure everything lined up, and then using the second one to lock it into place. So I've got my A-frames made up, and then I used 60 centimeter planks to be able to create the tabletop. Now, there was one bit that I was a little bit annoyed that was just slightly off, so thankfully Emma came and just helped me hold that in place while I tightened everything up. And then just quick test fit up to make sure that everything is going to work the way that I wanted to. Clamps and glue, sort of glue being used on all the joins as well, just sort of belt and braces. And my daughter came along to come and check on the work that Daddy was doing as well. So got the cross braces fitted for the top, so now it is one solid object. Then got the reinforcements on the bottom of the table, all glued up and screwed into place. Again, I'm not sure I need 4 on each corner for that, but frankly this table is going nowhere. It is absolutely rock solid. So essentially using those cross braces, same as the A-frame, sort of creating a staggered A-frame essentially from all 4 sides. I'm sure there are technical terms for this within the carpentry business, but I'm not a carpenter. as you may have guessed. So there we have our basic table shape. All I need to do now is fill in the hole at the top and we're all pretty much sorted. So decided then to use the table as my saw table legs. I can't remember what it's called, but you know what I mean. So lots more glue, fitting up the last 3 bits. I put that one upside down because I preferred the surface for the other side, and in a really good tight interference fit. So I think even without screws, that wasn't going anywhere. I used that extra bit of wood just to be able to knock everything into place without marking up the table. I then put a cross brace into the bottom just to make sure that, you know, clearly there's not enough wood on there already. And this thing is heavy. I'm sort of throwing it around, but actually that's partly just because the video is sped up. This is a seriously heavy table, and yeah, done. It was almost like that classic dad thing of checking the roof straps on a load and going, that's not going anywhere. That's what I was thinking. And the anvil fits on the table, which was kind of the whole point. Decided to give it a test tap. You can really hear it ringing at this point because it's not actually fixed to anything, so it just will ring like a bell. And yeah, so at this point the table is done. You could just stop here. It does have some sharp edges, and I just wasn't entirely happy with the finish of it. The sharp edges, I knew I'd catch an ankle or I'd catch something on there. So I used another power tool here that is utterly unnecessary to be able to do this job. You do not need to do this with a power tool. I used a flap disc on an angle grinder just to be able to round off all the edges. You could so easily do this just with a piece of sandpaper and maybe a cork block. But it just meant that it was a little bit quicker. Possibly a little bit aggressive. I think I made a couple of little nicks in it because I wasn't really paying attention to what I was doing. It was after work and just fancied getting it all sorted out quickly. So I then put some big coach bolts through because I figured that 97 screws wasn't enough to hold everything together, but I did think the coach bolts just finished it off nicely, so big coach bolts just to hold everything completely together, and then trying to remember how to use a wrench to be able to tighten everything up. And I also got a large vise, a 5-inch vise, to be able to put the other end of the work table. I figured this was just going to be, instead of just an anvil table, this is going to be a general purpose work table. So there's my 5-inch vise. It does call itself an anvil vise, and it has a flat ground surface on the back and kind of half a horn. Because it's brand new, decided to put a bit new grease in it just to make sure that everything is going to be smooth and lasts plenty of time. And then trying to work out positioning to make sure that it was going to be easy to be able to bolt in. I actually bolted the back section right the way through the table. Completely unnecessary. Doesn't make a blind bit of difference, and I then realised that actually it's not going to stay still with just that one anyway, so I put 2 screws with washers in to be able to make sure that everything was held at the front section. So 3 points of contact for my vise, happy with that, that's all sorted. And the anvil, now I think I stopped filming after I only did 2 screws, so I put 2 screws into the back. I then came back later and actually put in the 2 at the front as well, just to make sure everything was completely held in. And it sounds completely different now, actually. You can hear it just doesn't have that resonance because it is now bolted to the table. With the other 2 screws in, I can pick that up by the vise and by the anvil. And then decided that I wanted a little tool holder. Had an old belt that the buckle had broken on, so I figured I would make use of it. This was my favourite belt. I love this belt. It's a really nice belt, and I'm really annoyed the buckle broke, but figured get some use out of it. So I was just measuring it up with the hammer handles just to see exactly how much space there was needed, and just created these loops with a couple of extra screws to be able to make sure that I had a useful and handy tool storage place. This is complete overkill. None of this is necessary. The table was finished when I'd actually bolted the last bit together, and all of this is now just me playing. So you do not need to put any of this on there. This is just pure, I fancied playing around with it stuff. But yeah, I quite like my little anvil table. That's it all sorted out. I figured since I'd made it, I'd have a go with a little bit of blacksmithing. That is not any way hot enough, but my forge isn't really working the way it's meant to at the moment. It's just not getting hot enough for forging temperatures, and I decided just to muller this bit of metal. And yeah, table holds up. It works well. Thank you very much for watching. I hope that's been helpful. Hopefully the design should be simple enough that you should be able to see exactly what I'm doing as I go through it. But if you want any extra information, please drop me a comment down below. Simple table, good and strong. I can jump up and down on it and it's not going anywhere. So hope that helped. Subscribe if you'd like to subscribe. Like the video if you'd like to like it. And thank you very much for watching. Bye bye.